The air in the training hall was cold and smelled of oil and sweat. The room was a giant metal box, filled with the hum of machines and the low thrum of the station's engines. Rookie cadet Lena Holt stood straight, her hands at her sides. The only weapon was a long, thin blade at her hip. It was simple and old. Across from her, Corporal Frank Vickers stood in his Aegis armor. The suit was huge, a giant of gray metal and thick plates. It made him look like a walking tank. He had just finished a drill. The other cadets, with their rifles and laser guns, had all failed to beat him. Their weapons were now broken pieces on the floor. Vickers took heavy steps toward Lena. His voice came from a speaker on his chest, loud and deep. "A knife," he said. The word was full of mockery. "They sent me a butcher's apprentice." A few of the other cadets laughed, but it was a nervous sound. He pointed a metal finger at her. "This armor makes your little sticker useless. It is a toy. It will get you killed." Lena's face did not change. Her voice was quiet but clear. "It's not for the armor," she said. "It's for the man inside." Vickers let out a harsh, mechanical laugh. "Prove it. One free shot. Try to leave a mark." Lena did not run at him. She moved like water. She was fast and smooth. She slipped close to him as his arm cannons began to spin up with a high whine. She did not try to cut the thick plates of his armor. Her blade became a flash of light, traced a quick path over his shoulder, across his chest, and down his leg. The whole thing took 3 seconds. She stepped back and slid her blade into its sheath with a soft click. Vickers looked down at his armor. He saw no cuts, no dents. He scoffed. "Not a scratch. You're washed out. Get off my deck." Then, a sharp beep came from inside his helmet. A red warning light flashed on his visor. At the same time, the big screen on the wall for everyone to see lit up with words. "Critical system offline. Combat logic suite disabled." The armor was fine, but she had cut the tiny hair-thin wires on the outside. The wires that let the suit see and aim. She had blinded him without breaking the armor. Vickers was now a giant who could not see or fight. The hall went completely silent. The only sound was the hum of his powerless suit. Lena looked up at his blank helmet. Her face was still calm. "I left my name. Vickers." Suddenly, a new sound ripped through the silence. It was the station's emergency alarm. It was loud and sharp. A voice shouted over the speakers, "All personnel, battle stations. We are breached. They're here." Everyone looked at the main bay door. Massive boom shook the entire room. The thick metal of the door twisted and broke open with a terrible scream. Through the smoke and torn metal, a boarding pod forced its way inside. The pod opened. Soldiers in black uniforms stepped out. Their faces were hidden behind smooth chrome masks. Dare guns were already raised. The first laser blast hit a cadet in the chest. He fell without a sound. The war was no longer a drill. It was here. The training hall became a slaughterhouse. Red laser fire cut through the air. Cadets screamed and fell. They were kids with guns, not soldiers. The chrome-masked troops moved in a tight, silent formation. Their shots were precise. They did not waste a single blast. Lena moved on instinct. She dropped into a low crouch behind a shattered console. Sparks showered around her. She saw Vickers. The big man in his armor was stumbling, blind. He crashed into a weapons rack. He was a giant target. A masked soldier saw him. The soldier raised a long-barreled rifle. It glowed with charging energy. A kill shot. Lena did not think. She pushed off from the floor. She ran, not in a straight line, but in a zigzag. Blasts seared the air where she had just been. She closed the distance in seconds. The soldier turned too late. Lena's blade was a silver flicker. She did not strike the soldier's armored chest. She aimed for the thin gap between his helmet and his collar. The blade slid in with a soft, wet sound. The soldier choked. He fell, his chrome mask hitting the floor with a clang. Lena did not pause. She grabbed Vickers' armored arm. "Sway," she yelled over the alarm. He resisted for a second, then let her pull him. They crashed behind a thick support pillar. Laser fire scorched the metal where they had just stood. Vickers manually cracked the seals on his helmet. It hissed open. His face was pale and sweaty. His eyes were wide with a mix of rage and shame. "They don't fight like us," he grunted. "Their tech gets better faster, but it's ours." Lena was already moving. She knelt by the dead soldier. Her hands moved quickly over his gear. She found a small data chip tucked into her wrist slot. She plugged it into a portable terminal on her own belt. The screen lit up. Schematics and codes scrolled past. "Their iron shield," she said, her voice flat. "Our Black Ops unit, the one they said was destroyed." Vickers stared. "It's impossible. It's not an invasion," Lena said, her eyes locked on the screen. "It's a coup." Her fingers tapped the screen, pulling up a new file. It showed a massive ship docked to the station, a Wrath-class dreadnought. Its name was the Oblivion. Its main gun, a planet killer, was highlighted in red. "They're not here for the station," she whispered. "They're here for that." Just then, Vickers's personal comm unit beeped. A message, heavily encrypted, flashed on his wrist display. It was from General Maddox, the Supreme Commander of the Legion. The words were simple and direct. "The asset, Cadet Holt, is the only one who knows the Oblivion's manual override sequence. Her father designed it. Protect her at all costs. Do not let the ship fall." Vickers read the words twice. He looked from the screen to the young cadet beside him, the one he had mocked minutes ago. The one with the simple blade. He finally understood. The weapon he had called useless was the most important thing in the entire system. His mission was no longer to train her, it was to follow her. The path to Bay Alpha was a gauntlet of fire and steel. Alarms wailed and the station shuddered from internal explosions. Vickers moved like a battering ram, his patched armor soaking up enemy fire. He was half blind, relying on Lena's sharp commands. "Left corridor clear," she would yell, then dart ahead. She was a ghost. She used ventilation shafts and maintenance crawlways, appearing behind enemy positions. Her blade was silent and final. She did not fight the soldiers. No, she disabled them. A cut to a weapon's power cell. A slice to a leg tendon. She moved too fast for them to track. They reached a sealed blast door leading to the bay. Through a thick viewport, they saw the Oblivion. The dreadnought was immense, a city of dark metal. Its boarding ramp was retracting. They were too late. "There," Lena said, pointing to a narrow maintenance hatch almost hidden in the wall. "It leads to the ship's ventral hull. It's our only way in." They crawled through the tight, dark passage. The air was hot and smelled of ozone. The only light came from their suit lamps. The sounds of battle were muffled here, replaced by the deep groan of the station and the thrum of the dreadnought's engines. They emerged into a sterile, empty corridor on the Oblivion. The ship was eerily quiet. The air was cold. Red emergency lights pulsed slowly. Suddenly, the ship's internal comms chimed. A familiar voice filled the hallway. "Lena." The voice was warm. It was the voice of Commander Eli Vance. He had been her father's best friend. He had taught her how to hold a blade. He had recommended her for the Legion. His face appeared on a wall monitor. He was smiling, but it was a sad smile. "You shouldn't have come, kid. This is for the best. The Legion is rotten. We're saving humanity from itself." Lena stood frozen. Her hand tightened on her blade. Betrayal was a cold knife in her gut. Vickers raised his rifle, aiming at the monitor. Vance continued. "The manual override. Your father's little poem. Where the Guardian's heart should be. Tell me where it is. Tell me, and I will let you live. You were like a daughter to me." Lena's voice was a broken whisper. "You killed my father." Vance's smile did not change. He would not see reason. "Do not be like him." The ship lurched violently. The engines roared to life. A 10-minute countdown to weapons release appeared on the monitor, replacing Vance's face. At that moment, a squad of Iron Shield soldiers rounded the corner. Their weapons were up and ready. Vickers shoved Lena behind him. "Go, find the override." His armor sparked as laser fire slammed into him. He returned fire, the roar of his rifle deafening in the enclosed space. Lena hesitated for a single second, looking at the man who had mocked her, now shielding her with his body. "Go," he roared again. She turned and ran. As she fled down the corridor, she heard a sharp, sickening crack. She glanced back. A high-powered round had punched through Vickers's damaged chest plate. A dark stain bloomed across his uniform. He grunted and fell to one knee, but his rifle kept firing. Lena did not stop running. The cold fury inside her was the only thing pushing her forward. Lena ran. The ship's corridors were a maze of cold metal and red light. She could hear the distant echo of gunfire behind her. Vickers was buying her time with his life. She pushed the thought away. She could not feel it now. She used her memory of her father's blueprints. She took narrow service passages and climbed ladders through the ship's inner skeleton. She avoided the main halls where boot steps echoed. Her goal was the Memorial Hall. It was a place for the men and women who built the Legion's great ships. It was also a place her father loved. She reached the heavy doors. They slid open with a quiet hiss. The room was dark and silent. In the center was a statue of her father, Alan Holt. His stone face looked gentle, wise. A plaque below it read, "Guardian of the Future." Her father's voice came back to her. "Now the true weapon is not the sword, but the hand that holds it. The true shield is not the armor, but the heart within." She looked at the statue's chest, at the Legion crest carved over its heart, where the Guardian's heart should be. It was not a computer terminal, it was a symbol. She stepped forward and pressed the stone crest. For a second, nothing happened. Then, a hidden panel at the base of the statue slid open without a sound. Inside was a single, old-fashioned mechanical lever, the manual override. She reached for it. The hall doors hissed open again. Commander Eli Vance stood there. He was alone. He held a pistol, but it was pointed at the floor. His face was tired. "I taught you all the shortcuts, Lena," he said. His voice was still warm, like a favorite uncle. "But not all of mine." He raised the pistol and fired. Lena was already moving. The shot grazed her arm. It burned like fire. She drew her blade. Metal shone in the dim light. Vance tossed his gun aside. It clattered on the floor. He drew a vibraknife from his belt. Its edge hummed with a low, deadly sound. "Let's see if you are as good as your old man," he said. He attacked. He was bigger and stronger. He knew every move she had been taught. He predicted her blocks and counters. Their knives met in a shower of sparks. He was relentless, his attacks heavy and precise. He feinted high and swept her legs. She hit the ground hard. Her blade skittered from her hand, sliding across the polished floor. He stood over her, his knife humming. "It is a shame," he said, breathing heavily. "You had such potential." He lunged down for the final strike. Suddenly, the ship-wide comms crackled to life. It was Vickers. His voice was wet and strained, full of static and pain. "Lena, ... the core, ... A massive explosion rocked the Oblivion. The whole ship jerked violently. The floor seemed to drop away. Vance was thrown sideways, crashed into the base of her father's statue. Lena scrambled across the floor. Her fingers closed around the hilt of her blade. She saw Vance struggling to get up, dazed from the impact. She did not hesitate. The ship groaned like a dying animal. Emergency lights flashed red. The air smelled of smoke and burnt wires. Lena stood over Commander Vance. He lay still at the foot of her father's statue. Her blade was in her hand. She did not look at him again. She turned and grabbed the manual override lever. She pulled it down. It moved with a heavy, solid clunk. On the main display, the weapon's countdown froze. The number 1 glowed, a single second from the end. A loud, system-wide alert sounded. Weapon system disengaged. Manual control active. Lena did not stop. She moved to a control panel on the wall. Her fingers, slick with blood from her arm, typed commands. She set the ship to scuttle. She aided the life pod ejection sequence. An automated voice filled the hall. "The core breach in progress!" Abandoned ship. Pete. Abandoned ship. She ran from the Memorial Hall. The corridor was filling with smoke. She saw 2 Iron Shield soldiers dragging Vance's unconscious body toward a pod bay. They saw her. One raised his rifle. A blast hit the wall above her head. She did not return fire. She turned and ran the other way. She found a life pod. The door slid open. She jumped inside and hit the launch button. The pod ejected with a violent jolt. It shot away from the dying dreadnought. Through the small viewport, she watched the Oblivion. The massive ship tore itself apart. Silent fire bloomed from its middle. Metal broke into 1,000 pieces. It was a funeral pyre in the cold dark of space. A Legion recovery ship found her pod hours later. Medics treated her wound. Officers debriefed her, called her a hero. They gave her a medal and a promotion. She stood in a clean new uniform. She shook hands. She did not smile. Later, alone in her quarters on the recovery ship, she stared at a datapad. It held the official report. It listed Frank Vickers as killed in action. It called the incident resolved. She felt nothing. The metal on her chest felt heavy and cold. She plugged the small data chip into the pad, the one she had taken from the dead soldier on the station. She had copied files from the Oblivion's core during her escape. She had not told anyone. The files were not just battle plans, they were financial records, secret communications. They showed a trail of money and orders. The trail led to one man, General Maddox. He had known about the Iron Shield's rebellion. He had let it happen, used Lena and Vickers as bait. He sacrificed them to find the traitors in his own ranks. He let hundreds die to make himself more powerful. The screen glowed in the dark room. It showed the truth. The war was not over. It had just changed. Lena picked up her monomolecular blade. She held the cool, familiar metal in her hand. She looked at the data on the screen. Then she looked at her reflection in the blade. She was no longer a cadet. She was no longer a hero. She was something new. She was a soldier with a mission no one had given her. The real enemy was not the men in chrome masks. The real enemy was the man in the general's uniform. He did not know she was coming for him.